Hey everybody, this is Cody, helping coach this year. Hey, we wanted to make a few videos to help hopefully the parents and the kids understand some concepts that we're trying to teach in football. I remember as a little kid playing football being so stressed out that I didn't understand and sometimes even too scared to ask the coaches because obviously we coach them hard and so that can be tricky. So I wish when I was a kid, my parents knew more that they could teach me. So hopefully this empowers all the parents to know some of the assignments that kids will have, and then also make the parents. I think it's more enjoyable for you guys to follow along for sure if you know their assignments and what they're supposed to do. So real quick, we're going to dive into a few concepts with maybe 5 or 6 different videos. You're welcome to watch them. You don't have to watch them. You can show them to your kids at home. Hopefully you can study outside of the regular football practices and hopefully it will help. So, not that Chad needs any more compliments, but to give him one, Chad has always done a really good job with our team in keeping things complicated enough to be competitive, but also simple enough for the kids to understand. But the older the kids get, the more we can give them as far as the nuances of football, because football is not a simple sport, it's pretty complicated. So the older they get, the more we're going to teach them and the more confusing it might get. So we are definitely introducing a lot of new concepts, especially on defense. So most of these videos will be focused on defense. But first principle, absolutely first principle we need to understand is the strong side and the weak side of the offense. Again, this is a defensive video, but we can't do anything on defense. All of our alignments, all of our assignments are all based on the strong side or the weak side of the offense. So this is going to be a few minute long video to explain that concept. So really quickly to show and explain to you, how do we know what the strong side of the offense is and what does that mean? The strong side of the offense, we're trying to pick up on clues as to what side they're more likely to run the ball to. So we're trying to guess on offense which side are they going to run the ball to. Now they run the ball to the weak side or the opposite side all the time. They'll throw the ball, so it's not going to help us make a for sure guess, but it helps give some clues, and we set up our defense based on the side they're most likely to run the ball. So there's a few rules we're going to follow when we're determining that, and every kid on the defense needs to make this decision every single play, so it needs to become second nature. Rule one, we're going to look at the offensive lineman. So right here, you'll see the square. This is the center, or the guy that has the ball, that snaps the ball to the quarterback. So this is a lineman that always starts with the ball. This is the center of the offense every time. So everything's centered around the center. So first rule is we're going to look at the offensive line. Those are the players that are standing shoulder to shoulder on the offensive line around the football. That's first rule. We're going to look at the offensive line, and if it's not balanced, or if there's more players on one side or the other, then that's going to be the strong side. So as you can see, 1, 2 on this side, 1, 2, 3 on this side. This is obviously the strong side of this offense. But what if this player wasn't here and there was 2 on each side and it was completely balanced on the offensive line? So we go to rule one, the offensive line, let's pretend it's balanced. What's rule number 2? Then we're going to look at the backfield with some nuances that we'll talk about. But we're going to look at the backfield and see if that's favoring one side or the other. In this example, it's exactly balanced right behind the quarterback. So if the line was balanced, this is not balanced in this example, but if the line was balanced, the running backs were balanced, then we would go to rule 3, which is the receivers. We're going to look at the receivers on both sides and see if they have more players on one side or the other. But there is a caveat. Unless these receivers are really, really close to the line, like if they are set up right here where they can block linebackers, then this is going to jump above this rule and be rule number 2, which we'll show you about in a few slides. Lastly, if everything is balanced, the running backs and the wide receivers, if everything is perfectly balanced, then we're going to look at the open side of the field, or the side of the field that has more space to it. If all of that is the same, the ball's in the middle of the field, everything's balanced, then it just doesn't matter. And our players, our Mike linebacker, can pick what he wants to be the strong side. So to run through these real quick and show you some pictures. Rule 1, we're looking at the offensive line. So here are the linemen. So we can simply count them 1, 2, 3 on this side, 1, 2, 3, 4 on this side. They have a tight end that's on the offensive line. So even though they have more players on this side, rule 1 is the offensive line. So this is going to be strong to this side. Now, the defense is looking at it from this direction. So we call this the left side, this the right side. So in this example, again, we look at the line of scrimmage, the offensive line, we see it's not balanced. There's 1, 2 on this side, 1, 2 on this side. So again, this is the left side of the offense, but again, looking at it from the defensive perspective, that's the right side of the field. So this play would be strong right because of rule number 1. Got it? Here's a picture example. So again, rule number 1, we're just looking at the offensive line. Here is the center snapping the ball. There's 1, 2 on this side, 1, 2, 3 on this side. So we don't have to go to rule 2, 3, or 4. It's just rule 1. This is a strong left. Again, looking from the defensive perspective, this is the left side of the field, strong left. So that's rule number 1. Skipping to rule number 2, what if, like I said, it's balanced? So you can see they have a center, 1, 2, center, 1, 2. So the offensive line is balanced. Now what is rule number 2? We're going to look at the backfield. The backfield is anybody that's behind the line of scrimmage and behind the offensive lineman. So from here to here, that's our backfield and our running backs. We can see that it is not balanced. They've got more on this side of the field, which again to the defense is the left side. So this is going to be strong left is what they'll call out. Here's another example. Perfectly balanced offensive line, but not a very balanced backfield. This is actually a really balanced offense if you look at it, and so there's not a ton to this. This doesn't really indicate where they're going to run, but we'll talk more about that later. But for our call, we would still call this a strong left, strong left. Here's an example. Again, you can see if you look at rule number 1, the linemen, there's 1, 2 on this side, 1, 2 on this side. So they're balanced. So we go to rule number 2, which is the backfield. This is the quarterback. This is the running back. So this is going to be strong right. Again, the defense is looking this way. It's their right-hand side. So this call is a strong right, strong right. Okay, so let's pretend we get through the first 2 rules. Rule number 1 is the line is balanced. Rule number 2, the backfield is balanced. As you can see, they got 1 on each side. So now what do? We go to rule 3 and we say, look at the receivers. Where are there more receivers? That's going to determine the strong side. As you can see, we have 2 receivers on this side, 1 receiver on this side. So this call would be a strong right. Okay, we're going to show some more pictures and go over some of the receiver stuff because it's a little more complicated. But lastly, does this look familiar to anybody? This is a double wing offense. This is the exact offense that our team runs. As you can see, the center, the running backs, perfectly balanced. The line, we have 3 of them on each side, and then we have slot receivers that are perfectly balanced too. Our offense is perfectly balanced. We don't show any strong or weak side. So if that's the case, we go to rule number 4, and we look at the open side of the field. So here's another example. Here's the center. 1, 2 on this side, 1, 2 on this side. Rule 1 is balanced. They have 1, here's the quarterback, so they have 1 running back who's right in the middle. So rule 2 is balanced. So we look at the receivers, 2 on this side, 2 on this side. Rule 3 is balanced. So this is a balanced formation. Everybody is even, half and half. So the 4th rule is we look, where is the ball? We see there's more room to this side of the field than there is to this side of the field. So the call would be strong right, strong right. Hopefully that makes sense. So to go into the discussion of receivers, Based on the rules, we call this a tight bunch formation. So these receivers are bunched. There's 3 of them close together. We call it a tight bunch because instead of being way out wide over here, they're super tight against really close to the offensive line. So in the very first slide I showed, I said rule 3 is the receivers, unless the receivers are close enough to block. So if these receivers are close enough to block our linebackers right here and here, then that supersedes rule number 2 and they become the rule number 2. So rule number 1, let's look at the offensive line. As you can see, we have the center, 1, 2. Here's the center, 1, 2. So rule 1, the offensive line is balanced. Rule 2, we'll see the backfield is actually strong right. But because there's all these receivers that are close enough to block, that rule is going to supersede. So even though rule 2 tells us it's a strong right, we're actually going to call these guys linemen, basically. We're going to call them linemen and say that this is a strong left. The hard part is there's no distinction as to say, when are these guys out here so far that they're just decoys, they're not going to block for the run, they're just going to be pass guys. And when are they close enough to block? That's kind of a subjective decision that the kids have to make on their own when they're on the field. So it's not super clear every single play, and sometimes the formations can get tricky. So let's go through a couple practices really quick. Right here, strong left or strong right? Go ahead and take a guess. Here's the center, 1, 2. Whoops, we don't want to skip yet. Here's the center, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is obviously strong left. Pretty easy, strong left. How about this one? Here's the center, 1, 2, center, 1, 2, 3. So rule number 1, this is obviously a strong right. Pretty easy stuff. Here, I apologize, this is flipped so the defense is looking the other way, so you got to picture it backwards. But again, rule number 1, here's the center, 1, 2, 3. So this is a strong left. Again, if you're looking at it from the defensive perspective. Okay, here is a perfect balanced one. So what's the call? Here's the center, 1, 2, 3. Here's the center, 1, 2, 3. Rule 1 is balanced. Here's the running back right in the middle. Rule 2 is balanced. Here's the receivers, balanced. Here's the ball. So there's more field over here. We're all the way to rule 4. We're going to call this strong left. This is a tricky one that I wanted to put in here on purpose. So if we look really quickly, rule 1, the line is balanced. Center, 1, 2, center, 1, 2. We go to rule 2 and we see that the running back is on the right side. The question is, are these receivers close enough to block? I would say this receiver and this receiver, no way. They can't come block these guys for the run. But this receiver, I think, could come block these linebackers. And this receiver could come block these linebackers. So if this receiver was farther out, I would probably call it a strong left because I'm worried about this one. But because this is balanced and him are balanced, I would go to rule of the backfield and say this is a strong right call. Even though all these receivers are out here, I would call this a strong right. Lastly, again, if you look at the linemen, here's the center, 1, 2, center, 1, 2. So the linemen are balanced, but we can easily see that the receivers are way close to the line and can definitely block linebackers. So because of that, this is going to be a strong right. Lastly, I already showed you this picture, but perfectly balanced. We go to open side of the field, strong right. So hopefully that's a quick review. And I can say the only way you're going to get good at this is by reps. The only way you're going to get reps is watching football. So just watch as much football as you can. I know the NFL just started their preseason yesterday on Thursday. So watch NFL, watch our old film, watch college football, anything you can do. Try and watch football. Every time they come to the line of scrimmage, have your kids see if they can guess. Is it strong right, strong left? You just have to practice over and over again. Hopefully this is a help. we'll put out some other videos. But again, this is the starting of the building blocks, and we'll put out some more videos about formations and their assignments specifically based on this concept. Thanks for looking.